finally got my hands on a tank that is suitable for the rear condensation. That's a 20-gallon air compressor tank. And the way I had measured this out, I wanted a tank that was 14-inch diameter and 32 inches wide. I figured that would fill up the whole space I have available back there really well. This tank is 13.5 by 31. It's just perfect. I couldn't have asked for a better fit. I got 1.5 inches of clearance on the frame rail, top and bottom, both sides. Beautiful clearance across the hitch. Good clearance to the frame cross member. Nice even gap all the way. And even with where it's set right now, the bottom of the level represents the bottom of the decking. So it's going to clear everything. So now I need to add, well, this port here is going to get capped off. It's not going to get used. I thought I was going to be able to utilize this one the way it is, but it angles up too high. So that's going to get capped, and there's going to be 2 lines coming off the front right here, running right underneath of that cross member. Those will be the gas out lines. And the gas in lines are going to have to come from right here, and I have to make sure this is rolled corner tubing that I built the frame out of. So I need to make sure I cut all the way into the bottom down here, so any condensation that's already in the rails or any char doesn't have to hit a corner and roll up and over into this pipe that will lead out to the tank. It's got to come in completely flush on the bottom, so everything comes down the cooling rail, turns that corner, and just falls right into the tank. These pipes are going to be pretty tricky to build coming in. You know, I'm basically going to have to come in underneath and then have it run downhill into this tank, but also trying to do it without making them visible from the back of the truck, because eventually I'm going to have some plating back here that kind of ties all the back end of the truck together and hides everything. Basically you won't be able to see except for down to the hitch, and it'll be pretty camouflaged just once I get the decking on it, because this will all be in shadowing. The only light that'll be down here is the tail lights hanging off the sides of the frame rail, but this will get camouflaged even more eventually. So, oh, and then the factory drain that was on the bottom of that tank, look at this. It sits just the other side of that cross member. Look at that, just perfect. So I go weld a piece of 2-inch pipe on there, and I'll have my dump that hangs down right here can be completely hidden right underneath of the hitch. And I scored that for 20 bucks. All right, let's put some pipes on it. First thing I need is a quick little structure that will hold the tank in place while I fabricate all the pipes. So I just got whatever random pieces of scrap metal I got laying around. I'm really good at dropping things on camera. Have you noticed that? Now, because that's all tack welds, see, it still has a minimal amount of movement. I can get it squared up in every dimension, and I can get these ratchet straps out of the way. Oh, don't worry. I'm only like 2 hours into this pipe already. Trying to joint round pipe to rectangular on a downhill angle and get full flow across the bottom, that's not fun. Neither is then joining it to a domed shape on that same downhill run. Been a lot of falling magnets and broken chalk and frustration. This could be much easier, but I'm being hard-headed. All right. Now, I'll admit this is some pretty backyard bullshit right here, but it's the easiest way I have figured out how to do this. So I took 2 pieces of angle iron, like we talked about when we made our little scribing tool before. Angle iron will always want to lay flat on a piece of pipe. So I cut 2 pieces of it and zip tied it between. I had to cut this in half because my pipe wasn't long enough. I underestimated my total length, but that's okay. So I cut it in half, slid this one down, clamped it with a couple pieces of angle iron, used my tool. Of course, I was way too far off of the pipe over here, so I had to put a notch way further back, and finished my scribe out on that side, cut it out, and got it close. Then put the angle iron back on to hold these 2 pipes in alignment. Finished out my cope, made sure I fit it up as best I can. I've got a little bit of a gap up here, not too worried about it. I can fill that in. Yeah, I did both of those joints just using this little tool. I didn't use any math, I didn't use a tape measure, nothing. Now I've got both of the joints where I want them and how I want them. Now all I have to do, because I cut these at a perfect 90 and I have them clamped this way, they're true to each other. So I can just take a measurement in between, cut a piece of pipe that size, slide it in there, tack, pull the whole thing out, and I can weld it. Before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and mark out on the pipe, and I've already marked out on the bed the outside diameter of this pipe. Then once this comes out to get welded, I can cut out the holes on both, set it back in place, and weld it. Because this is such a weird angle system, and I'm not using any math or measuring tape, nothing. I'm just doing all of this by eye. I'm just making sure it's got good fall going into the tank. I wanted it going in high in the tank, so that I don't have the bubbler effect as often if I end up with so much condensate in here. If I end up with a bubbler effect in this tank with my gas into the tank that high, basically this tank will be about 15 to 17 gallons full. And that means it's gonna start sucking condensation towards the motor and the hay filter. It's gonna be drained way before that ever happens. Honestly, I'm probably just gonna drain it every single day, just like I do the Toyota. But I wanted more capacity because I do plan on doing longer drives with this truck, and being a V10, it's gonna be hauling my car trailer, it's gonna be hauling my camper, going in the woods, going hunting, fishing, towing my boat. This truck's gonna work. So I wanted that extra capacity if maybe the day ends up being 300-400 miles, which is not uncommon for me during hunting season, or even just going scouting, mushroom picking, berry picking, anything like that. Which I hope to do a lot of videos of adventures like that when this truck is done. Alternative fuel and no fuel cost to go do all the hobbies I love doing. So yeah, anyways, I got these coped out the way I want them. I'm gonna take that measurement, mark out both the tank and the rail, and typically, if I was really trying hard, I could weld one in here, weld that one on now, take the tank out of the truck, then take a hole saw and run down the pipe and knock both the pipes out. But then I would have the issue on the tank side of getting that piece back out of the tank after I cut it. I don't have any holes in the tank big enough that that would come out of. So I think we're just gonna mark it, cut it out without welding the pipe onto it. I'll stick a magnet in there, fish out the cut piece, just plasma cut it. And then I'll probably do the same over here on the frame rail. I will probably attempt the paper trick. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. If you've got a really odd angle, or even if you're just trying to mirror something, because I do have to mirror this, I have to put this exact same pipe on the other side, except the rail's coming in at a perfect opposite angle and the tank is sitting at an opposite angle. What you can do is take a piece of pipe or a piece of paper, wrap it over the top of the pipe, and basically you can use your fingers and just push it down around the edge here and mark it on the paper, cut it out, mark a center line on it, and then cut that center. And what you can do is you can take and wrap that over another piece of pipe, but wrap it the opposite direction. And you should be able to get a very close mirror image of whatever your end cuts were. If I try that, I don't think I'll have a problem back here on the frame rail, but the tank has to be perfectly square for that one to line up on the opposite side. And it's also going to be pretty difficult to do that on a length of pipe and orientate both pieces right, unless I can find a piece of paper wide enough to do the whole thing. If it is, I'll try that. If not, it's going to be another 2 hours of fiddling around doing this. And then, like I said, I'd still have to cut it and weld it. I'm going to leave this as an integral portion on the bed for the time being, meaning when I patch in a piece of pipe here, this will get welded full length to the bed and to the rear condensate tank. That way the tank itself has its own mounts. It's still going to get a couple mounts probably over to this cross member over here. That way it's mounted fore and aft, and I won't have to worry about road vibration distorting anything or over time cracking a weld or this tank, which I don't think the tank will be a problem. I believe that tank is at least 1/8 inch. So it should be plenty strong, but I'm going to gusset it up either way. Yeah, I got a lot of fiddling to do. We'll talk to you guys in a bit. So I got that piece of pipe cut, laid into the two halves that I had them tacked together, wrapped it in paper, and just take a razor knife and cut both of my edges all the way around. And I'll usually take a piece of angle iron, lay it on the pipe, so I've got a nice square reference line. Now if I did it right, which don't quote me on this, it's been a minute since I did this trick, I should be able to take this off. And there's my radius, both sides. I do use tape, it makes it way easier. This still has to be welded up, but getting it that far is good enough for this part of the process. I should be able to line this paper up, which is a lot harder when it's got tape on it. I don't know if the tape's going to come off nice enough. Oh, maybe. If you've got tape that doesn't tear paper, that'd be the better one to use probably. I should be able to take this, line it up on my square line. Oops, almost did that backwards. Because you actually, from one pipe to the other, you flip it over. That's how you get your mirror image. If you run it the same way, you'll end up with two pipes that are the same. Came off my line a little bit there. Now, should be able to take and wrap this tight right back onto that pipe. Tape it back down, and you should be able to trace out both ends of your radius. Whenever I'm doing this, I always try to leave a little extra length, because where your trace line is not your actual edge. You're going to be grinding right until the back of your trace line. Try to use a razor knife when you cut your paper and leave your trace line the cleanest edge. I've done this with chalk before. In the process of cutting it, you inevitably wipe off some of the chalk, and then you got to try and put your paper back on. So I do recommend doing this one with a permanent marker. Leave your edges easier to see where you're going to grind to, because you're going to have to bolt cut it out first and then grind till you get the perfect fit. This ain't like having a pipe joiner or a mortise or anything like that. This is the cheap backyard way. So, you can see our top radius there, all the way around, and the side that will catch onto the frame. And these should be a perfect mirror image of each other. I'm gonna go get this one cut out. We'll see how it fits up. And that's how you go from a whole lot of fiddling around with a little bit of paper and some flat wheels and some grinding to a nice finish. So that sits down low enough on the frame rail over here that the decking will still, I don't think I'll have to notch the board out. Sits nice and high on the tank, so we'll have lots of capacity. Now, because this one fits up really nicely, you could take that same piece of paper, flip it back over, and cut another one that doesn't have all these cuts and welds on it. But I'm fine with welding this up and using it over there. But it's an option if you want to make it super spiffy looking. I gotta get some holes knocked out and get these burned in. Talk to you guys in a later episode because I'm running out of memory again. One of these days I really need to get a GoPro and some memory cards.